I do in waking life, but not in the radio life. Welcome to the Church of Mabus. It's Friday night. It's
Yes, it's that time of year again.
what's that? Some kind of ad.
That's the ad for the I think the awards for the
Okay.
Centralist and Amelia and Michelle's show are up for awards. That's what that's for.
Okay. All right. Well, you're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. It's Friday. It's hot as hell in Florida. It's fixing to start raining. And we got Jay McNicholas here with us tonight.
I might get rained on too. I just looked up and out the window, so I might be joining you.
Oh no! So many people are croaking.
Uh-oh.
Hold on a second. We got Dean Gleason with us tonight.
Hello, everybody.
It says Dean Gleason Senior. What's that last word? I can't read it.
Seaway Valley.
Okay, Seaway Valley. That's where you're at.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody is just cut off right there. But all right. Well, I was going to say first off, James Caan died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw you posted earlier.
Someone else just croaked. Everyone's croaking.
Celebrities and politicians, they go away in threes, one after another.
Tony Sirico, the actor known for his role as Paulie in Sopranos, just died.
Oh,
apparently,
wow.
I always heard he was a real gangster or something, and he actually played that part. But
the way some of those guys looked, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. I saw the movie that they did. It was okay, but the show's a lot better. But it's been a while since I've seen it. Of course, James Gandolfini, that really sucked that he croaked.
Yeah. That was out of the blue, though.
Yeah, it was sad. He's like eating ice cream or something in Italy or something and just croaked. But anyway, we're just, let's see. First off, I just want to mention a few guests that are coming up, and then we'll get started. Let's see. Next week is Diego D. Oxy. That's some of that Brazilian voodoo. Some kind of stuff. July 22nd, Granddaughter Crow. That's native stuff.
Cool.
And
that's
then,
all wham.
Yeah. And then July 29th, Daniel Duke. That's some Wild West stuff. Then when you come back, Kate Johnson. That's I'd have to look. I think it's I know it's an Intertraditions book. I think it's like Celtic kind of stuff.
I only have two books upstairs we haven't done yet, so I'm not sure which one of those. I don't think that's it.
I need to double check about her book because I don't think I got her book either.
Yeah.
So I need to check on that one. Let me put a question mark by it. I don't think I ever got hers. And then Richard Grossinger, he's coming on. That's UFOs and stuff. August 19th, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, like a wild scientist that contacted me that's been on Coast to Coast AM.
Having a PhD on is good.
Like in the quantum physics and all this weird stuff. Has like some
cool.
School for gifted children. It's like Xavier from the X-Men. And then, and that's who we got so far. I'm fixing to be working on Halloween lineup, so trying to get the creepy creeps in. And the good shows for Halloween. All right, let's see here. Well, Dean, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
If you could just give us a little background about yourself. I know there's a good bit, but just as far as your research, where you're located, and the name of the organization and things like that.
Well, my name is Dean Gleason. I've been doing Bigfoot research for over 25 years. I'm located in the Seaway Valley of northern New York, which is the St. Lawrence River Valley. It's out right on the border of Canada. Some people refer to this place as the Thousand Islands region because there's over 1,000 islands in the river itself. So that's where they get the name for that.
It's a good salad dressing.
Yes. The salad dressing was invented in Clayton, New York, which is probably about 50 miles from here. So that's the area I'm in. Contrary to what most people think, New York State is very much a wilderness. It's only downstate near the city in that area where it's really, populated. Up here, It's very country, a lot of farms, a lot of state land, a lot of woodland areas, plenty of Sasquatch habitat.
I've never been to the Pacific Northwest, but I've been throughout most of the Northeast forests and, federal state parks and that kind of thing. Is the foliage similar? Is the climate similar? Because up there, I know it's like 90% of the state or something like that, a forest. But it's like not to be funny, it's like the Pacific Northwest forest of the Atlantic Northeast. I mean,
yeah, it's really pretty close. It's pretty really close, and it's a lot of mountains. The Adirondack Mountains are just south of me.
They're not far from me either.
And the Squatches love the mountains. And what I think happened, we never had Bigfoot sightings up here when I was younger. It's only been a recent phenomenon, maybe the past 30 years or so. Well, maybe a little longer than that, because my first experience was 42 or 43 years ago. But probably about 20, 25 years ago, the state opened up a lot of the land in the Adirondacks to logging. In fact, there was a big controversy up here because deer hunting is a big thing in this area. And some of the traditional hunting camps that were on leased land had their leases revoked by the state. And our local assemblywoman lost her job over it because the local people didn't think that she fought hard enough to let them maintain their camps, and she got voted out of office that next election because of that. It was a big, election topic at the time. But what I think happened is the Squatches have always been in the Adirondacks. Going back hundreds of years, there's been sightings and reports of Squatches. But I think what happened was when the logging started and the development started, they moved north because this area was going back to being reforested. A lot of the small family farms had closed down. And so that land was just laying there or being underutilized. So our deer population exploded. And Bigfoot being an apex predator, they followed the food. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of overgrown apple orchards up here that aren't being used anymore. Plenty of food for them up here. So I think that's a big reason why we had a migration from the Adirondacks into the St. Lawrence River Valley.
How about caverns? A lot of caverns up there?
There's more than you would think. I know of personally 3. They're not very big. But I keep my eye on them. A lot of times when I go squatching, I will make a visit to that area to see if there's been any activity. And I have had activity in those areas. So I do believe that they do utilize those for shelter when they can.
I don't think just for shelter. I think for travel. Because we know there's a lot of vast connected caverns up and down both the east and west coasts. So they may not be able to travel by cavern all the way from, say, Maine to Florida and vice versa, but they can travel, a state, 2 states underground completely undetected, which I think is one of the reasons why we're having trouble finding and encountering them on the ground, because they're not on ground, they're going underneath of us.
Well, they're the world's greatest hide and seek experts too. I mean, I practically walked right by a juvenile. He just got unlucky that I spotted him. I mean, because normally I wouldn't even have noticed it, but just for some reason he caught my attention. And my original thing was I thought it was a log or a stump. And then and if I hadn't known that area so well, he would have got away with it. But I know that area like the back of my hand, and somewhere in my brain looked it up and said, wait a minute, there's not a log or a stump over there. Yeah. So I stopped and looked again, and there he was sitting on the ground looking over his shoulder at me. And
did he get mad when he noticed you noticed him?
Well, what happened was...
No, really, I'll tell you my experience later on, but there's a reason why I asked. You saw it, and when you noticed him noticing that you were looking at him, did his face change?
Not really, no. It's kind of a funny story because I have been having problems with a neighbor sneaking into my property and hunting. Oh. And I own 28 acres of woods. My brother-in-law owns the hay fields all around it. And 3 or 4 miles from that is another 200 and some acres that my brother owns. So it's all in the family. So we try to keep it that way as far as the hunting is concerned. Just family hunting on that land. Mm-hmm. And I've had to kick him out of there a couple of times. I've caught him in there. So that's what I thought was going on. I thought he had snuck in and was sitting there on the ground hoping I wouldn't notice him. So I actually spoke to it.
Okay.
I got about 40 or 50 feet away from him, and I stopped and I turned around and I said, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" And then it stood up, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's not a person."
Yeah.
And it was probably only about 4 feet tall. It was a young one. And he just glared at me for a second and turned around and walked away. Didn't act scared, didn't act upset or anything. Just boogied away and went back into the brush.
Probably not his first paranormal encounter either.
But yeah, because to us, or to them, we're the weird ones, So
So here's the thing. Jay believes it's material, physical only, and he's seen one. Me, I think there's something about it. I don't know exactly what. I don't know. I wouldn't say paranormal is the right word, but I know I've interviewed a lot of natives, and you hear things, like they walk between realms, spirits, boss of the mountain. Maybe that's all mojo hojo, but these things sure are ninja-like and kind of live up to this stealthness, kind of like the Predator, like the movie, the Alien
yeah.
Predator. Maybe they have some kind of built-in chameleon thing or something. I don't know. But I know I'm someone who's seen weird crap before, so I don't rule anything out. I've seen two beings of light leave my house and fly into the heavens completely sober. Two people made a light. I don't
How do
know
you know
what
they were
that.
sober though?
They probably weren't. I've seen them not sober, but we just stick to the sober. But at that particular time, and maybe it was my dad. He passed away. Maybe it was angels. I don't know. I've seen a lot of weird stuff over my house in the heavens that was UFO like. May have been some secret Chinese. I don't know what it was, but it was weird. And I've also seen some strange beings. I've seen little hooded beings in the woods standing around a black box with a witness. A cat jumped towards them and then vanished. The natives call them little people. And at the time, I was reading a book about Celtic stuff, the other world and all that weirdness and druids. And, it was talking about all those kind of like the fae and all that weird stuff. And maybe I drew it onto myself. I don't really know. But Dean, you seem like you think they're physical only. That makes Jay happy. And so is that what you think? Do you think they're physical only?
Well, I tend to follow the science of it. And if you don't see anything else in nature with the abilities that some people are putting on the Sasquatches, then I have a hard time putting it on them. We don't really see anything else in nature that has the ability to cloak themselves, as some people say, or jump between dimensions, if you want to go with what some people believe. I think they are a physical being. I think that they do maybe have some special abilities. I think that they're highly intelligent, on a par with man, if not maybe even a little smarter than us. And, the Indians, at least the ones in the area that I've talked to, refer to them as the hairy tribe. That's how they've always said they were taught, that they were just another tribe, but hairier than us. And they were to be respected and to be left alone. That's what the feedback I've gotten from some Mohawk people that I've interviewed, because I live right near the Mohawk reservation up here. And I've had reports coming out of the reservation, Bigfoot sightings several times. I've never been invited to go there to look, but I've had them call me and tell me about it. But I'm open to things. I used to be a youth pastor. I've seen some weird things. I've heard a demon scream. And I've also heard a Bigfoot scream, and it's a different style, totally different thing. Because I've heard people say that maybe Bigfoot is some kind of a satanic manifestation. There are people that do believe that. I don't. I think that they are a physical, God-created being that lives along with us here on this planet.
You think there might be a Nephilim connection, like the weird mutants that got wiped from with the floods from doing angels and stuff?
That could be. Yep. That could be where they originally came from. They could have survived the cataclysm of Noah's flood. That's a possibility. They also could be some kind of a hybrid between humans and some primitive man that existed. Not saying Neanderthals, because pretty much everybody has Neanderthal DNA in them. I don't know. Some species of hominid that lived here that wasn't recorded yet, or has been misunderstood in the fossil record. I don't know.
So it's
But
yeah, it's definitely interesting that you were a pastor. I grew up with a Christian upbringing in Georgia, and my dad was as well. And one thing I forgot to plug something really quick that's Christian related. And then I want to ask you just briefly about that demon screaming, and then we'll get back to Bigfoot. But before it's news, the boss there just put up some videos, and it's at In Search of Souls. That's In Search of Souls. And he's putting up prayers with scripture, and he's claiming, and he tells me that he can heal people. And each one has scripture and a particular ailment in it. Like one's adrenal, like the adrenals, the glands, bones, and things like that. And he's telling me that if people will listen to this, it will help to heal them. So I mean, that's on you if you want to go there and check it out. I'm listening to him. I'm not against the idea. I think it's possible, but I told him I would plug them. So one more time, In Search of Souls. That's in, letter N, Search of Souls. And you can go there on YouTube and look. Okay, and if you could, what was this demon screaming situation? Was he doing exorcism?
well, it started out, we were having a revival at our church, and we had invited a pastor from Georgia to come up and preach for the week. And the last night that he was there, they were going to have a potluck dinner for the people that had come up with him, and the people in the congregation, got together, and we were going to have a nice little dinner at the end of the last service. And I had gotten there late because at the time I was working on a dairy farm, and I couldn't go to the service until I got done with the evening chores. So I got there a little bit late, and I sat in the back, and a young man that was in my youth group came and sat behind me. And all of a sudden he got up and left during the invitation, but I didn't think anything of it because I thought that probably he was going to the where they were preparing the food for the dinner. So I didn't really think too much of it. Well, when the service got over with, I was standing out in front of the church with another young man talking to him about something. And the pastor came and found me, and he said, "Can you please come in here? I need you." So I went into the church, and the young man that had left was in there talking to the evangelist that had came up from Georgia. And we went up, and the pastor informed me that the young man had been dabbling in witchcraft. And he had talked to the pastor about it, and the pastor told him that it wasn't something that he should be doing. And he had some books on witchcraft that he had surrendered to the pastor, and the pastor disposed of them. Well, apparently he didn't get rid of all the books that he had. He just gave the pastor some of them. And he had been, I guess, still doing some things that he shouldn't have been doing. And he said that he heard a voice inside of his head that told him to leave the church, and that was why he got up and left. So the three of us prayed for him and talked to him for a little while. And then I went back outside and left him there with the pastor and the evangelist. And I was out front talking to the other young man when I heard the scream, and it was unearthly. It was the weirdest thing I have ever heard, other than the Bigfoot scream that I heard. But like I said, it was a totally different thing. So I ran towards where I heard the scream coming from, and I ran out into the backyard of the church, and the pastor was standing out there, and there was a empty lot next to the church that was all grown up, and he was standing on the edge. And he said, I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I was out here." The young man's name was Johnny. He said, "I was talking to Johnny." He says, and all of a sudden, Johnny just got this wild look on his face and ran out into that long grass. And he said, "I stood here," and he goes, and I didn't say it loud enough that anybody could hear me, but I said, "Satan, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you." And he says, as soon as I said that, that's when the scream happened. So here I am with the pastor and the other young man. We're like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy walking through this long grass trying to find this kid. And when we found him, he was laying on the ground. And I walked over and I knelt down and I asked him if he was okay. And he kept on saying, I gave him back the piece of paper and he tried to take me with him. And I said, who? And he goes, the devil. And I said, where did he go? And he said, over there into the ground. And I swear to you guys, when I looked over at the spot that he was pointing to, the ground was glowing. It was just like a totally different color than the rest of the grass around it, and it was had like a lightning bug glow to it, and
Wow.
that was probably the scariest thing I've ever been involved in.
Sounds like it. We've had some stuff in the last few places we've lived and had a particular person from the network, Michelle Desrochers, do a clearing, and she can do it from far away. And she's been on a lot of TV shows and very reputable, but she's found some demonic beings around me and Christina in several locations and removed them. And I don't know why. I don't know. I guess they just a thorn in the side kind of situation, but I definitely believe that there is that kind of stuff and spiritual warfare. And I've had Bill J. Bean on, a spiritual warfare minister, and he said some interesting things about some of these hybrid cryptids and weird stuff that basically Satan and the fallen angels like make weird stuff in labs and stuff like that, like hybrids and like, Mothman and all that kind of crazy stuff. And there are weird stories
The
about
island of Dr. Moreau.
Greek creatures being made by like Zeus that are hybrids and weird stuff. So who knows? I don't know. But there are some weird sightings of weird stuff and different, like those documentary Small Town Monsters that basically chronicle all these weird towns that have had crazy cryptid sightings. And there's some of these towns where the military's shown up. People have gone crazy with lynch mobs, and and who's to know if it's just not hysteria or what it is. But there's definitely the Lizard Man in North Carolina. Come on down and get a Lizard Man burger and a Lizard Man tire change, and come on to the parade. There's a lot of towns like that, but those documentary Small Town Monsters kind of get into
Yep,
all
I've
that
seen them.
stuff.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. Yeah, I like them. I've had him on, but
I don't know if either one of you guys are a J.R. Tolkien fan or not.
I am. I've
Um,
seen you sporting the Gandalf.
Yeah. But if you read the Silmarillion, he talks in there about how God does not allow anything to be created or anything to be given life that he didn't ordain. And I do believe that's true. Now, evil can contort or extort something that already, or corrupt something that already exists, some kind of life that already exists. But I don't think that the devil or the demons have the actual ability to create life. I think that's something that God keeps to himself. And but you might be able to take an animal and crossbreed it and do things to it and make it something weird. But that animal didn't get its life from you. It already had its life. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't direct creation by something evil. It was already something that God had put here on the earth that was corrupted.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe. I don't think that the devil has that kind of power to create.
It's definitely crazy times. If it ain't the end of the world right now, it certainly seems on the cusp. But how many times have people said that throughout history too?
Oh, sure.
Things are definitely. I just saw
The
Putin,
apostles were expecting Jesus to come back in their lifetimes.
yes,
And
and I just saw Putin threaten to nuke us again or something. Like that's just getting crazier every day. Like he's threatening to nuke Ireland, threatening to nuke us, threatening to nuke Finland, and he's just going crazy. Then you got the China thing on Taiwan that could go off.
He's trying to save face because he got his. He's just trying to save face because he got his butt handed to him.
Yep. By a little rinky-dink
still
country
is.
that he didn't think would give him any trouble. Yeah.
One of the weirdest things that we're not going to get into this
That's
too
the problem
long,
with
but
bullies is they don't think they're going to get hit back. When they do, they act like this.
one of the weirdest things, and I don't want to get into this too long, that I've been seeing, and I brought this up on the show because it just baffles me. There are people in America that think Putin, they're pro-Putin, and they think he's battling the New World Order. Somehow it ties in with that Trump QAnon craziness. And I'm not saying every Trump supporter is into this stuff and believes that. They don't. But there are some that do it before it's news. And they think he's a hero and there's Nazis in Ukraine and he's doing the right thing. And by those rules, we should be getting killed too. There's freaking Nazi freaks here. So does that mean we all deserve to die and get bombarded by Russia or whoever? It's just crazy trying to
There's been Nazis around forever. Before they even had the name Nazi, there was people that were like that,
Yeah.
that believe that stuff. It's just, there's a crazy gene in the human race. And
Yeah.
out of 1 million people, there's going to be 4 or 5 that are crazy. It's just the way it is.
It's like rooting for somebody that's threatening to nuke you. Yay, I love you. And he's like, I'm going to nuke you. I love you. Just trying to understand it. It's just too much. But so what do you think's up with these Bigfoot? How do they live? How are they hiding? What do you think about some of their structure and their society?
Well, I'd recommend a book to you. It's called Enoch, a Bigfoot Story. Was written by a gentleman down in Florida, and he actually lived with a group of Bigfoot, according to his story. And it's a very good read. I can't vouch for the guy that it's 100% true, but from my research and my experience, I saw a lot of things in the book that rang true to me, just from what I know. And I have a Native American on my staff. Well, I can't really say he's on my staff. He's part of my group. He does squatch with me once in a while, but he's always there for advice and guidance on certain things. And I actually call him a Bigfoot whisperer because he seems to have a sense of them. He knows when they're around, and he knows a lot about them. He's been having experiences since he was 6 years old with Bigfoot. And I gave him the book and asked him to read it and tell me what he thought. And he read it in a day, he said. That's how much it hit him. And he said that everything in that book was true, is what he told me. And so I'm taking his word for it. So I'd recommend that book to anybody if you want a good understanding of how they live, how they interact with each other. There's a lot of good stuff in that book about that, because this guy actually lived with them.
Yeah. It's weird because I see it's Autumn Williams, but they say it's a woman, but then someone said a man in the review, so it's confusing. But I've heard of that book, and
she actually wrote the book, and it was dictated to her, or the stories were told to her by a gentleman, whose name she wouldn't reveal.
Okay.
Because he didn't want anybody to know the area he was in, or he wants to keep them secret. He doesn't want anybody messing with them. So these are stories that he told to her, and she wrote the book.
Ooh, it's on eBay too. I'll have to get it sometime.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So I recommend that book.
I've seen it. It was like one of those I was supposed to get, but never got around to it situations.
I avoided reading it for years because I had several people tell me it was a bunch of crap. And then one winter, there's nothing much else to do here.
Yeah.
Besides to keep from freezing to death. So I ordered it off on Amazon and read it, and I enjoyed it.
Here's another one I've heard about, and I don't know if it's any good. It's called Teluke, Teluke, a Bigfoot account, a personal account of interaction with an older race of spiritual beings by White Song Eagle. I have a weird one. That's one of those that's sitting around. I never read it, but that's another one of those kind of weird ones like that one that I need to read it, but I just saw it, so I was just going to tell everybody about it. But it's called Teluke, a Bigfoot account, a personal account of interaction with an older race of spiritual beings by White Song Eagle. But I'll check out that Enoch one and grab it sometime. Now, here's a theory. What if there are physical Bigfoots, which we can all agree on that, but when they croak, there's ghost Bigfoots, and people are seeing both? It's possible.
I guess so.
Caveman ghosts.
I do a lot of panels at like at conventions and things. In fact, I think I might be doing one in Hunt Valley, Maryland next week. Maybe, I don't know for sure. They haven't told me for sure yet. But I've been up in. I just got back from Vermont. I did one up in Vermont just maybe a few weeks ago. But anyways, one of the things I do is I always try to get interaction from the audience, asking them what their experiences are, and things like that. Or, then I always take questions. And one of the questions I get kind of often is, are Bigfoot aliens? And I personally don't think they are, although I do believe in aliens. I've seen several unidentified objects in the sky that I can't say were aliens, but they were aliens. But anyway, I saw some things that were kind of strange, and I think one time I might have even seen a gray at one time.
Cool.
But I don't believe that they are aliens. And I remember somebody asking that question at one not too long ago, and so I kind of just threw the question back. I said, "What do you guys think?" And this one girl said, "I have talked to the Bigfoot that are in my area, and they tell me that the reason why you see UFOs when they're around is sometimes they get abducted too."
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you look up Stan Gordon in Pennsylvania, a big time researcher, he has a lot of weird Bigfoot UFO cases. And who's to say, star people and Bigfoot, the native connection, maybe they might talk to them. Who knows? I don't know. But there's some
I
weird
don't know
cases.
either.
There's some weird cases for sure that I've
Did you get
heard
the picture
about.
I sent you from the game cam? Did I send that to you?
Yes, I know you sent me a bunch and I looked through them, but I can access them. Let me look.
Okay, there's one there of the UFO that I caught on game cam. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember. I got
Yep.
it. Yeah.
I can't remember if I said that. I had game cam set up in the area where I've been having activity, and I didn't get any Bigfoot pictures, but I got this one picture, and I was just about to hit delete because I didn't see anything in the picture, so I thought maybe a bird had flown by or a piece of grass had moved or something, and set the camera off. And then I noticed way up in the corner of the picture there was a little speck. So I blew the speck up, and it turned out it was, I don't know what it was, but it looked like a saucer hanging there in the sky, and it was only in one frame. So it was something there, but I don't know. I can't claim what it was. It just telling you what it looked like.
So what is this gray story? Well, I mean, what happened there? A
Oh,
gray.
well, when I was a little boy, I lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather taught me almost everything I know about hunting and fishing. And I got a good story I can tell you about that in a minute. But this particular one with the UFO, my grandfather always used to go out to the back of the house and check the temperature every night with his little flashlight. He'd shine it out the window, and there was a thermometer on the back of the house, and then he'd come out and tell us what the temperature was. And then he'd take the dog into the kitchen and give him a treat. It was like his little routine every night. Well, this one night he goes out there and he didn't come back right away. And then he goes, "Hey, everybody, come out here. You got to see this." So we all went out into the dining room. And it was dark. He didn't turn the light on when he went out to do this. And there was something hanging in the sky right above Route 12, which is a short highway that runs through northern New York. And the road had just been built. It hadn't been there very long, and it might have been there maybe a year. It was a brand new highway, and it ran behind our house. Little two-lane highway. The military wanted it in because at the time there was some unrest up in Canada, and they wanted to be able to move troops in a quick way from Fort Drum up to the international bridge. So anyway, we stood there and watched it, and it was just hanging there in the sky. And the adults in the room got bored with it and went about their business. But I actually stood there and watched it until it left. And when it left, it just went and it was gone. So several days or maybe a week later, I woke up early in the morning, and there was something standing in my room. And at the time, I didn't know what to call it. I was just a little boy. I didn't know what to call it, an alien or whatever. I just knew that something was standing in the corner of my room looking at me. And at the time, we live on the Canadian border, like I told you before. So half of the TV stations we got when I was a kid were Canadian TV stations. And there was a show on one of the stations called Rocket Robin Hood. And it was like Robin Hood in space is what it was. And there was this little alien guy on the show. I don't remember his name now, but that was the only thing I could connect it to in my mind. My little kid mind was that alien from Rocket Robin Hood. So I remember tearing out of my bedroom and running downstairs and saying to my mother, "Mommy," whatever the name of this thing was, "is in my room." And she says, "No, you're having a dream. You're having a dream." And I'm like, "No, it's there." And I actually made her come upstairs with me. But by the time we got up there, whatever it was gone. But I saw it plain as day, and it left an impression in my mind. I could still remember seeing it and what it looked like. And now that I'm older and have more experience, I'm pretty sure it was a gray.
Wow, that Rocket Robin Hood, I looked it up. That looks pretty weird, kind of. Looks definitely to check it out. I like weird old
Yeah, it's an
stuff.
old cartoon from back in the 60s.
Yeah, it's like aliens in it and weird stuff. It looks interesting for sure.
Yep.
And well, my experience is I don't know. I've just seen a lot of UFO stuff and some weird beings, and a lot of it is just from I think when I had testicular cancer and went through chemo. I think it opened up my senses on some weird level, and then my dad died, so it just kind of like what shamans call the sight. I don't really go around, saying I'm a shaman. I think I have some traits, and I've interviewed enough that some of them have probably rubbed off on me, and I love to talk about that stuff. So, but I'm not like some hippie in the van. I'm a shaman, dude. Come on in. But I like all that kind of stuff. But as far as you were gonna what are some of your experiences that you've had with them? I know you talked about the one in your yard, and I know you talked to me about you're going to go to visit some places as well. But what are some other experiences that you've had with Bigfoot?
Well, the first Bigfoot experience I had when I was a young man, I was in junior high and high school. I used to go trapping with my grandfather. We used to trap muskrats for the fur, and it was a way of making a little extra pocket money. And we had a trapping run, and my grandfather showed me how to do it, and he usually went with me. Well, there was this one particular area of the swamp he didn't want to put any traps in, and he never told me why. And I think he had some kind of a sighting or experience down there, looking back at it. Well, after he retired from trapping and I was doing it on my own, I didn't see any reason not to put traps down in that part of the swamp. So I did, and never caught much down in there, maybe one or two muskrats over the time I had the traps there. But one day I went down there to check the traps, and I had something in one of the traps that was still alive, which was unusual because we had the humane instant kill traps. We didn't use the leg traps. We used the ones that got in and it killed them right away. They didn't suffer. So anyways, there was something in that trap and it was still alive. So I got over there and I had caught a very, very large snapping turtle by the back flipper. And I don't know if you guys have had any experience with snapping turtles or not, but they're nasty. Probably next to a crocodile, they're probably the worst thing you can deal with.
They're angry little things.
Oh yeah, they got an attitude. They really do. And so he was snarling at me, and he was pissed off. So I was thinking to myself, how in the hell am I going to get him out of this trap without losing a finger? So I thought, well, maybe if I take a boat oar and I stick it by his head and kind of block him off, I can get around there and get it off him. So I did it. I was successful. So he kind of gave me the little turtle finger and went back up into the swamp. So I went to reset the trap, and I looked over next to the trap, and there were a set of what looked like very, very large human footprints coming from the shore over to where the trap was. They were probably, looking back at it now, I'm guessing they were probably 14, 15 inches long. They were pretty big, and bigger than any person's foot I've ever seen. So I was shocked. I didn't, I thought, well, these do look like what I've heard of Bigfoot before. This look like Bigfoot tracks, but I never heard of them being around here. So I took the trap out, decided not to reset it, and put it back in the boat. And I noticed the tracks only came out to the creek. They didn't go back into shore. So I went over to the other side, and I went slow along the other side of the creek, and I found where the creature had come out on the other side. It pulled itself up out of the swamp. And there was more tracks, and they went up into the hardwood. So I never told anybody about that for years and years and years because of the typical reasons. I was afraid that somebody was going to think that I was, crazy or making a story up. So what I'm thinking now has happened is that the Bigfoot saw the turtle splashing around there in water and thought maybe a fish or something had come up and got stuck in the reeds and thought it was going to be an easy meal. But then when it got up there and saw that it was a snapping turtle, thought to itself, I ain't going to mess with this thing. I don't want to lose a finger. Same thing I thought. So instead of trying to get the turtle, it just left. So that was my first experience knowing that there was a Bigfoot around. It was quite a few years later. I was going to go deer hunting, and my brother has beef cows, and he has a pasture that's part of it's in the woods. And then he has another pasture on the other side of the road that's, just big field. So during hunting season, he always makes sure that the cows are on the side where there's no woods so that they won't accidentally get mistaken for a game animal. So I stopped at his house to see if he had moved the cows yet. And he had told me, yeah, it was okay to go hunting. So he said, maybe you'll get a treat today. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, several days ago, he goes, there was a cow moose out in the field. And the area we live in, we're north of the Adirondacks. It's unusual for us to get moose in this area. Once in a great while you do, but not very often. They mostly stay into the mountainous area. But every once in a while, one or two will wander up this way. So I had never seen a live moose before, so I was kind of excited about that. So I went down and found my place to set, and I stayed there most of the day. I don't move around much when I hunt. I'm a still hunter. I camouflage myself, find a good spot, and I stay there. And I was there most of the day, like I said, and it was getting on towards evening. And my father has an old beat-up pickup truck with a very loud muffler on it. And if he starts it up, you can hear it for miles. And he has the feed on the back of that truck normally that he takes to the cows. So he started that up, and all the cows were getting excited over in the other field, and they were all bellowing and mooing and carrying on over there because they knew they were going to get fed. Well, right straight out in front of me, there was a bunch of brush. And all of a sudden, the brush started moving. And, I mean, a deer doesn't move the brush like this. I mean, the brush was really moving. So I'm all excited. I'm thinking, oh, that must be the moose. It's something big. I'm going to get to see the moose. So I'm watching that spot, and all of a sudden, a head and torso pop up out of the brush. And it was a squatch, a full-grown male squatch. And he stood there for a couple of seconds looking around. I don't think he was aware that I was there at all. I was all in camo, and I was set up in the shade of the trees. And he made this noise like a big barrel-chested man that was frustrated. He went, oh, like that. And then he turned and walked away right through that brush. And that brush is not easy to walk through. It's very coarse, and it'll tear your skin up, and it's not nice stuff to try to navigate through. He boogied right through that stuff like it was nothing. And I sat there thinking to myself, I can't believe what I just saw, but there was no mistaking what I saw. It was a big old male Sasquatch. And that was my first encounter with one. And I've had many since. I've had 5 or 6 sightings. One I can't really count because it was pretty dark, but I'm pretty sure it was a Squatch. I've been within, like I said, within 40, 50 feet of one. That juvenile that I saw. I saw Big Mama or Big Papa probably a week or two later, probably 400 yards, navigating around the trees. And we've seen the little one twice. I had a couple other people from my organization were with me. We were doing an afternoon walk around. We weren't expecting to see anything because normally it's either right at dusk or early in the morning when you have a good chance of seeing a Squatch. This was in the middle of the day. And I had been gifting the Squatches in my area after I knew they were there. And we had gone back to leave some stuff out for them. And that juvenile came out. I think he jumped the gun a little early and came out because he knew what I was doing and didn't realize we were still there. And we saw him, probably 400 yards away. And as soon as he realized we were still there, he dove into the long grass. And but there was 3 of us that day that saw him, myself and 2 other people.
So how were your fear levels, judging from the first time you saw it to on? Did you deal with fear with it? Like, did it freak you out?
The only time I really was scared was I had a really, really aggressive howl aimed at me one night. I was, again, deer hunting. I was in a tree stand on my property, probably 400 or 500 yards away from where I'd seen that juvenile. But this was before I'd seen the juvenile. This was probably a year or so before that. I was up in my tree stand, and 3 doe had come out into the field. And I'd seen these 3 doe quite a numerous amount of days in a row. They always came out around the same time. They stand out in the field and graze for a little while, then they trot back in. In the area where I hunt, they have a very limited doe season. You have to have a special permit, but you can get a buck anytime during the season. And I normally don't shoot a doe anyways. I usually try to just wait for the bucks. So anyways, I was up in the tree and I'm watching these 3 doe playing around out there. And all of a sudden they alerted. when a deer alerts, it gets very stiff and rigid, and its tail goes up, and it kind of walks like a prance more than just a normal stride. And it will put its snoot up in the air, and it'll make a huffing sound. And that's what the one deer was doing. It was very upset about something. And I knew it wasn't me because I was downwind of them, and I was in a tree stand, and I was camoed. So I knew it wasn't me. So I'm looking around to see what was bothering the deer, and I wasn't seeing anything. I thought maybe there was another hunter, or, it could have been a buck because it wasn't during rut season yet. During the non-rut season, doe really don't want anything to do with the bucks. It's only when they go into heat. They call it rut, for those of you that don't know that term. When they go into rut, that's when the doe get a little bit more friendly with the bucks. But up to that point, they don't really care for them. Excuse me. So anyway, I'm looking around to see, and not seeing a thing. And all of a sudden, that doe just took off at a dead run, and the other two went with her. And probably maybe 50 or 60 yards back in the brush from where I was, I heard the most blood-curdling howl, growl thing that you could ever imagine. It was just unbelievable how loud it was. And it made the air vibrate. It was just a weird feeling, and a weird sound. And as soon as it did it the first time, probably every coyote for 20 miles around all started howling. And then it did it again, and it was like somebody turned off the volume to the world. There wasn't a noise to be heard. It was just dead silent. And I always compare it to the episode of Happy Days, where Fonzie's in the woods and he's trying to sleep, and all the there's wood, there's grasshoppers chirping, and there's owls, hooting, and all of a sudden Fonzie just sets up and goes, "Cool it," and everything just stops.
Yeah.
That was exactly, that's what it put me mind of. Just everything, the whole world just stopped when that Bigfoot did that aggressive growl, and I've never heard it since. It was just that one time. Then I had another experience about probably about a month later in that same spot. I was it was like the last week of the deer season, and I hadn't seen or heard anything all day, and I was just about ready to call it a day when I had a little 6-point come out. Well, he wasn't little, but a 6-point come out, and he was just hanging out, looking around, and he caught towards my deer stand. So I shot him. I got down out of the tree. I know he was dead. I'm certain this deer was dead. I left him there, and I went to get my truck. Took me maybe 10 minutes to walk back to my truck, and I was taking my time because it was the end of the season. I'm putting my stuff away, and I took off my hunting jacket so I wouldn't get blood on it. Drove my truck back to where the deer was. It was gone. There wasn't a trace of it. There wasn't a drag mark, nothing. The deer was just gone. So I'm not thinking Bigfoot, I'm thinking coyotes, but they would have left drag marks taking the deer away. So I got my flashlight out because it was starting to get dark, and I'm looking around on the ground trying to figure out what the heck happened to my deer. And there's a drainage ditch that goes between the hayfield and the hardwood. And I looked over that way, and I saw a foot of the deer sticking up in the air. So I went over, pulled the deer up out of the drainage ditch, and I started field dressing it. So I'm in the middle of field dressing it, and just off where I couldn't see it, I'm pretty sure there was a squatch standing there. And he kept on going, "Huh? Huh?" like that at me. And he did it all the while I field dressed that deer. So I finished, I put the deer in the truck, and I reached into the back seat of my truck, and I grabbed my flashlight again, and I shined it right over in the direction where the noises were coming from. And this is the sighting that I don't take credit for because I didn't get a good shot. I didn't get a good view of him. But I saw like a big dark outline of something, and then it turned around and walked away. So if it wasn't a squatch, I don't know what it would have been. It was, it was pretty big. But then I had one the last one I had was about this time last year. During the pandemic, I built a camp over there. And I was over at the camp doing some routine chores, and the hay hadn't been cut in the hayfield yet. And I went back to my truck to get something, and I looked over, and there was a Squatch standing on the fence line looking over the fence at me. And I did get a picture of him. I think that was one of the pictures I did send to you. He was just standing there by the fence looking over at me. And as soon as he noticed that I noticed him, he walked away. But then probably 15 or 20 minutes went by, and he came back.
Which picture was that? It was what was the picture of? I have your pictures right here.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I sent you the picture. It was like a fence line, and I think I circled it. I think I circled it in the picture I sent to you.
Let's see. Yep. I see it. Let me see if I can send these to Jay. Jay saw a Bigfoot. If you want to tell him your story yet, I don't know if you told him when it was before.
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
I'm going to turn the light on. Looks like I'm getting a little dark in here.
Okay. Let's see if I can forward these to you.
Hey, that's a little better.
Yeah. So I have seen a Bigfoot, and it was a long time ago, and it was in the Youngstown, Ohio area, and in a weird place too. I mean, it was on the back of my aunt's house, a little song, but so it was like it was near Thanksgiving, and my parents had dropped me off at my cousin's house. They dropped my brother and sister off at another cousin's house, and then all the parents went out to dinner, aunts, uncles, grandpa, and all that. And so my cousins and I were in one bedroom on the second level of the house, by the way, just jumping on the beds and having fun. And the room I'm in is actually smaller than the room I'm describing, but it was like typical 70s house bedroom, 7 feet wide, 8 feet wide, 10 feet wide, something like that. Nice big square. So I'm sitting on the bed watching my cousins goof off, and then I smell this terrible, like cross between like skunk and poo smell. So I look in the window, which was open, even though it was cold outside. We were jumping on the bed, so the cold air was helping. And there's this Bigfoot face watching my little cousins jump on the bed. And the face was like, all happy. He was happy to watch my cousins jumping on the beds. Then he sees me seeing him, and his face went right to anger, and then he yelled at us. I guess it was an aggressive vocalization, but he screamed right in my face, and everyone stopped moving like they were statues. I mean, it's like, you ever play that game when you're a kid, freeze or whatever? Yep. Everyone froze. Then we all ran downstairs to where the babysitter was, and we got to the bedroom. The bedroom was here, and then one level down, and like the next room over was the back living room, and looked out onto the backyard. We got to that room just in time to see this thing jump off of the little clubhouse. My cousins had like a log cabin clubhouse out back, and he jumped off of that into their sandbox and then ran through the backyard. I mean, it took him like 2 or 3 strides, literally, and he was gone. It was that fast. But it was late at night, so we didn't go looking for him. The next morning we did, and we followed his tracks into I think 2 backyards over. Then it turned right into the woods. We followed the tracks right up to the creek, and we lost him. It was pretty scary, and my cousins probably don't want to talk about it, but the evidence was pretty obvious. There were 2 big handprints on the outside of the wall of the window he was leaning in on, and he had been standing on the log cabin to lean over to look into the window because it's on the second level. And then he left 2 big footprints that we just followed into the woods, and it's pretty cool.
I got a call last year from some ladies down in Bath, New York. 2 of them had seen a Bigfoot in their backyard, and ghost hunters had been there to do an investigation on a haunted cemetery that's just across the road from where their farm is. And when the ghost hunters were there, they found Bigfoot tracks in the cornfield next to the cemetery. So I got invited to go down and do an investigation. And so I went down 2 different weekends. And the first weekend I went down, we walked around the area. I was with one of the eyewitnesses, and we went down to the swampy area. And we made some noises and did some calls. And we thought we heard some responses from quite a ways away. And I asked him what was on the other side of that swamp. And he goes, well, there's a little bit of hardwood. He goes, then there's a pond. And he goes, there's an access road into that pond. Do you want to go back there? So I said, sure. So we went back to the house, and he has I guess you would call her my sister-in-law, because he dates her cousin or what. I don't know exactly the relationship. I'm screwed up with the relationship there somewhere, but they're related. So anyway, she wanted to go with us. And so her mother told her she could. She goes, but listen to Dean. If Dean tells you to do something, to do it. I don't want you running around half cocked back there. So anyways, there was a group of us went back to where the pond was. So her and I and the eyewitness that was with me originally, we walked down to the pond, and the rest, there was 3 others, and they stood up on top of this little hill by the vehicles. So we went down to the pond, and we made some noises, and we got what we thought was a couple of responses. We got some whistles, and we thought we got one whoop. So I told the 2 of them to go up to the top of the hill and do a couple of tree knocks to see if maybe we could get some response from that. So they went up the top of the hill, and I stayed down by the pond, and they did the tree knocks. And right after they did it, we got a response. We got a tree knock in response. Well, those 2 had never been squatching before, so they got all excited and started talking real loud about it. So I was like, oh, great, they've blown our cover. So they come running down the hill to tell me, Dean, did you hear the knocks? Did you hear the knocks? I'm like, yeah, I heard them. But I said, you shouldn't have been talking that loud. I said, now they're on to us. They know we're people over here now. So they're probably done. They're probably not going to respond anymore. So we hung around for a little while, nothing. So I said, maybe we should head back. So the young man says to me, well, I'll walk in front of you. I know the area better. You just follow me. And I was like, okay. So we're walking along, and the young lady's standing next to me, and she leans into me and she says, wow, it's really hard to walk in the dark like this, isn't it? And as soon as she said that, crack, we got another wood knock, and it was right on top of us. And I think every paranormal investigator has had that Scooby-Doo moment. Well, that's what this was. She was trying to climb right up on my back, grabbing hands full of me, yelling, oh my God, it's right over there. And I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, it's right over there, but it's not going to hurt you. If it wanted to hurt us, it could.
It would have already, probably.
Yeah, I said, it's not going to hurt you. It's just letting you know it's here. And the rest of her family got quite a kick out of that when we got back to the farm and told them what happened.
I noticed in one of your pictures you had some handprints on the glass. Was that a big case?
Yep, that was near where I got a cast of a footprint right near there. I was back setting up game cams in this area that I was doing some research in, and I found this nice tree. It was right in the middle of a clearing. I thought this will be a good place to put a game cam because I can catch whatever's coming through there. And there's an old camper back there that used to be used for, I guess, for deer hunting or whatever, and it's abandoned now, and it's all caved in. So anyways, I put the game cam up, and I was looking around, and I found a track. So I went back to my vehicle, and I got my casting materials, and I came and I put the plaster in the footprint, and I was waiting for it to dry. So I was just walking around that clearing, just looking for other signs. And I walked over to that camper, and there on the camper were great big, huge handprints on that camper. You could see the fingers, and they were big. And it looked almost like maybe a nose or partial face print too on the window. So I took pictures of it. I think maybe a Squatch walked over there and was just looking in through the window and put his hands up on the window while he was looking in there. It was probably 50 feet away from where I got the track.
I know there's a lot of speculation about the missing 411 stuff. You've heard about that with David Paulides and the missing people and all that from national parks and all that crazy stuff. People like to kind of try to tie Bigfoot into it. And it's possible some of them may, eat people, but I don't think they all do. There may be some bad ones out there. Is that something you ever think about? If there's something out there that eating people?
I don't think that the Bigfoot in my area are very aggressive. I've never heard of anybody having a very negative experience with them. The eyewitnesses that I talk to mostly say once the Bigfoot sees them, it walks away or runs away. But I have watched the documentary that was based on that book. I haven't read the book, but I did see one of the documentaries that they did. I think that Bigfoot will defend his territory. There's the native legend about the war between the Bigfoot and the Native Americans, and that was said to have been started over a female Bigfoot that was snatching kids out of the village and eating them. And the natives retaliated and killed her, and the rest of the Bigfoot didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
The Native American fellow that I was telling you about, that I squatch with occasionally, he told me the story that he was involved in the Kandahar incident over. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, about the Kandahar giant.
Yes.
That happened right at the beginning of the war after 9/11, where some military people were injured by a Bigfoot over in Kandahar area.
Oh, okay.
And they ended up killing it. He said he was there, he saw it. But to go back further, he's the gentleman I was telling you about that's been having experiences since he was 6 years old. He said that when he was a kid, his mother thought he had an imaginary friend that he played with in the backyard. He said, but she wasn't imaginary. She was a juvenile Bigfoot that was about the same size as him, and she would come in the backyard and play with him when the adults weren't around.
Huh.
And sometimes she would borrow his toys, and his mother would say, "Where are your toys?" And he'd always say, "Oh, Luna has them." He said, "I don't know why I started calling her Luna, but I just felt that was her name." And he goes, "Oh, Luna's got them. She'll bring them back." And he goes, "Sometimes she would, and sometimes he'd have to go out in the woods and get them," he said. But she'd always leave them in the same place. So he said he got back from his tour overseas, and he was stationed out in California, and some hikers were found killed, and they had been pretty badly mutilated. So the local Forest Service asked the local military base if they would mind assisting in trying to find out what happened to these hikers. So he was called in. This is his story. I can't verify it. I'm just telling you what he told me. He said he was called into his commanding officer's office, and they asked him if he would mind taking one of the groups out. And he said, no, he'll go. They said, well, we know you've got a lot of experience in the woods, and we also know that you've got experience with Bigfoot. We've heard the stories you've told, and we know you were in Kandahar. He says, there's a possibility that this could be a rogue Bigfoot. He goes, would you have a problem putting it down if this is the case? And he says, well, I would rather not, but if I have to, I would. So he told me they went out for 3 days looking, didn't find anything. He goes, the last night they were there, he was sitting in front of his tent, and a pebble hit him. And he thought one of the guys in his outfit was screwing around. So he yelled at him and said, hey, guys, quit throwing rocks at me. And they were like looking at him like he was nuts. We didn't throw nothing at you. So he said a few minutes later, he got hit again. And he could see all of his guys, and it wasn't them. They weren't doing it. So he got up and he looked around. And so he walked out of camp, and he says he walked a little ways and he came in a little clearing. And he says standing on the other side of the clearing was a Bigfoot looking at him. And he said it didn't speak or didn't make any noise, but he kept getting the same message in his mind. And the message he was getting was, we're aware of the situation and we handled it. You can go now. And he says that kept repeating over and over and over in his mind.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know the Kandahar giant. This was the native friend you're talking about, right?
Right.
And I know that story is some soldiers, it's Afghanistan, and they find this big, like, red-haired, crazy giant, and they kill it. I know there's a lot of stories about it, but that's cool that you know someone that claims they were there, because I never knew what to think about it. But
yeah, he said it was 14 foot tall.
Was he one of the ones that put a bullet in it, or he just
No,
saw
he
it?
got there right after. He didn't kill it. He was right there. He got there right after they killed it.
Wow.
And he said he saw it. He says they body bagged it and flew it out of there.
What did he? Was it like from that? Did it look like it was like dark skinned, or what did it look like? I mean,
he didn't go into that much detail with me when he told the story. He just said that he described it as being a Bigfoot, and he has a lot of experience with Bigfoot. So if he told me it was a Bigfoot, I believe him. He said that it was a Bigfoot.
I don't know which David Polidi's Missing 411 documentary you saw, but I know the first one's pretty cut and dry and they don't mention anything that weird in it. But the second one, they start kind of alluding that something paranormal is a possibility. And it's called The Hunted. It's the second one's The Hunted. And they talk about a big UFO coming over a football field at a school. And they had a picture that involved Bruce Maccabee and his wife, and Bruce Maccabee's a big ufologist, but it was something in the tree, and the way the sun was shining on it, it was kind of like it was in stealth. But in the second one, my point is they start kind of alluding into weirder stuff, and I've interviewed David a lot,
Mm-hmm.
not in a while, but at least 5 times in the past. But it's been a while. But one time we were doing a written interview on Examiner, and I brought up a Bigfoot question. Well, he wrote me back and said he couldn't answer it, and he wouldn't answer it because he said people would think he's crazy if he brought that up, but kind of alluded to that's part of it on some level. But the second documentary is called The Hunted. If you haven't seen that one, if you saw the first one, The Hunted gets kind of weird. Like he was really never into any kind of weird paranormal anything, but in that one, he's starting to say, there's something here that's weird, because they bring up the UFO case and some other weird stuff. But I know Ron Moorhead. Are you familiar with him at all? Ron Moorhead? He
Yeah.
has a book, Quantum Bigfoot, and he gets into some kind of weird stuff about bending light and weird stuff. That would go in league with the chameleon kind of stuff, I guess, the predator kind of stuff. But I'm open that there'd be some that, like there's a story in one book, Sasquatch people. This Bigfoot was rogue and it was hurting, I guess, people. Somehow the other Bigfoots gave it antifreeze and left it dead to die in a cave or something weird, like a weird story. So there are these weird little stories, but it's just hard to know what's true or not. But something weird's definitely happened to people, and you can chalk some of it up to animal and nature stuff. But some of those stories in his books, I have a lot of those books, and they're hard to read because they're just too much. Like it make you want to start looking around when you're outside near trees, afraid someone's going to get you. But there's stories like people have been lifted up and dropped and their bones are fragmented. Just weird. Like it gets weird, and the FBI gets involved, and so it's not just Bigfoot. It's aliens. But I would like to think there with Bigfoot, there's probably some a-hole Bigfoots, and then like with anything,
Sure.
there's good and bad in anything. Another story I remember from Linda Godfrey's book, she's into the Beast of Bray Road and werewolves and dogman and all that stuff. Somebody got in a car wreck or something and was knocked out and overheard two talking, and they were kind of like in a disagreement if one of them was going to eat him, and he like heard it somehow. But it's just hard to know. So much of it's speculation. I'd like to see a Bigfoot. I've seen other weird stuff, but sometimes it seems like they appear to people that want to shoot them first or something like Justin Smeja. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but a lot of hokey pokey with that story. He supposedly shot one and killed it and came back and it was gone. I interviewed him once. It was a complete mess of typos and stuff, and people always come to the site and cuss him and stuff under it. But
I don't know if you guys heard about it where you guys live or not, but we had a prison breakout up here about 5 or 6 years ago. Two guys had help from a girl that was like the seamstress of the prison. I guess apparently she fell in love with one of the guys and she helped them escape. Well, they had a huge manhunt up here. I mean, it went on for, I think they were at large the better part of 3 weeks before they caught him. They ended up killing one of the guys, and the other guy ran from him, and a policeman shot him in the leg or something, and he survived, and they shipped him out. But anyways, last summer, this area was kind of exposed to the media quite a bit because we had a Bigfoot sighting that went viral up here, and it was picked up by the National Wire Service, and it was in a lot of newspapers, and I guess it was mentioned on Coast to Coast, and I was interviewed, and I know the interview that I did was in several papers around the country because I got calls from different people told me about it. But anyways, right after all this happened, a bunch of the squatchers from this area, we hadn't gotten together in forever, so we decided this is a good time to do it. So we a bunch of us got together one evening and had a meeting, and I was talking to one of the Squatchers, he's a former correctional officer. He's retired now. And he is privy to a police scanner that has the encrypted channels on it because of his position with corrections. He was allowed to have this one where the normal people that have the scanners wouldn't be able to hear it. He can, some of the coded channels. So anyways, he was very interested, of course, because, you know, he had been a correctional officer. So he was following this breakout very closely. And he was listening, and he heard a guy on there that he knew talking. And the guy said, I need backup here right away. I've got 2 subjects walking towards me, and they're not responding to commands. And it went silent for a few minutes. Then he heard the guy on there again, and the guy was more frantic. And he said, I need backup here, and I need it now. And then the next thing he heard, the guy again saying, I really need more people here. I got people here, but I need more people here now. And he could hear gunfiring in the background. So then this other man came on, and he didn't recognize, and said, this channel is off limits. Nobody say a damn thing. He goes, everybody shut up. So he thought, oh, they got him. So he went and turned on the TV to figure, because the news up here was carrying it wall to wall. So he figured to be on TV that they've got the guys or whatever. There was not a word about it. Just the search is going on. Nothing happened yet. And so he watched and watched and watched, and nothing. And it was several days later before they caught the guys. So he said he was somewhere, and he ran into the man whose voice he recognized on the radio. And he said, hey, I heard the whole conversation on the radio you were having. What was going on? And the guy said, okay, it's you. I'll tell you because I know you're into this. He said, we killed 2 Bigfoot. And he was like, what? And he goes, we had 2 Bigfoot coming at us, and we thought they were the escapees, and we opened up on them.
Wow.
And he said, we killed them. And he goes, what happened? He goes, Fort Drum, which is the local military base up here, flew them out. He says, they came in, put them on the helicopters, and off they went with them. We don't know where they took them. And he goes, and we were all told to keep our mouths shut.
You're talking about Dannemora, aren't you?
Right.
I looked it up to make sure it said New York. Then I knew. You know, Ben Stiller, that guy that's in the funny movies, he did a show on Showtime called Escape from Dannemora.
Yep.
Patricia Arquette, Benicio del Toro, Paul Dano, the guy that played the Riddler in the new Batman. It's really good. And I think they won awards and stuff, but Patricia Arquette's real scummy in it, and she like helps them and is banging them and stuff in the wood shop.
Yeah,
that
was based on the girl that was actually doing that stuff.
Yeah, and then Benicio del Toro starts conning and using her while she's doing it with the other dude and in love with him, so he gets in on it. It's crazy. It's a good series. I
did see it. I heard about it, and they were actually looking for local people to be in it when they were doing the show. And I do a little bit of acting. I thought about going and doing it, but I was like, nah, I don't want to bother with it.
That's crazy about the Bigfoot thing. Wow.
Yeah. And I have no reason to doubt the guy's word. I mean, he's retired correctional guy. You know, I've squatched with him. Good guy.
That's a trip for sure. Definitely. That show is worth checking out. It's on Showtime. I don't know where you can find it now. I guess on their app crap or whatever.
It might be on HBO Max.
No, it was Showtime only, so it was like made by Showtime. So I don't know if it's on HBO, but it was just 2 different companies, right? Showtime and HBO. But
I think HBO owns Showtime now, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I don't know. Who knows? But you got any Bigfoot questions, Jay?
Yeah, quite a few actually. So we talked earlier in the show about the cloaking. I don't agree with those people that think they can just phase in and out of our reality. Alien devices, maybe, but some have also said he's a shapeshifter. Have you had any experience where you've seen him and he changed form in front of you? Because a lot of people have said that the reason why we can't find him is he changes into things, which I also don't believe. But if you have a good story on that, I'd love to hear it.
I've had people talk about it that I've interviewed. I personally don't think it. Like I said earlier in the show, I kind of follow the science, and if other creatures can't do it, that we know of, you know, if you told me, oh yeah, there's a breed of I don't know, dog that can change into a cat at will, then and you can see it and it can be demonstrated, then I would say, okay, well, then maybe Bigfoot can do that too. But you don't see any other animal that can do that. So I tend to believe that it doesn't happen. If people are seeing things that can change into other forms, then I think you're getting into the demonic realm, where people maybe are seeing some kind of a demon or some kind of supernatural being, and that goes back to my days of a youth pastor. For those of you who aren't religious, I'm not trying to preach at you or anything like that, but I've had enough experience having to deal with the supernatural on that form that I would say that's probably what they're seeing. They're not actually seeing a Bigfoot. They're seeing something else. Maybe that thing is pretending to be a Bigfoot or pretending to be something, because they do things like that. That's what I believe ghosts are. I don't believe ghosts are actually people. I believe that they're demons pretending to be people, because the Bible clearly states to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So, when somebody dies, you go and see God and he decides where you're going to spend eternity. And that's the end of you. You're one place or the other. You don't get to come back here and hang out. That's my personal belief. I'm not trying to push it on anybody else, but that's just what I believe.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on a lot of that. It just there when I saw Bigfoot, it was the 70s. There was a lot of things. There were very few documentaries in the movies, but quite a few on TV. In Search of, and things like Outer Realms and what's his name, Rod Stewart show, Twilight Zone was out. So they had some that had kind of sort of Bigfoot stories on them, but you didn't see Bigfoot and a UFO story together. And that started coming in the last 10 years, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But you mentioned that you think he has some special powers, and I'll tell you what I think he has. And they're not, I wouldn't call them supernatural, but they're beyond like anyone of our skills. One of them is brachiation, being able to swing through the trees on their arms. They're strong enough to do that. I've seen footage of a juvenile doing crazy gymnastics in a tree just with his arm.
I've seen the same footage.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I've seen it.
Yeah. They have extreme survival skills because they don't, as far as we know, live in houses. They might live in, like you say, caves. I think they use caverns to travel up and down the eastern and western coasts. And I think they have superior night vision. I don't think they're like cats where they can see in very low light, but they have superior night vision to us. And in complete total darkness, they're just as blind as we are.
Well, see, that's all things that are nature, though. You can demonstrate that through other creatures.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Bigfoot behavior, the wood knocking. Great apes do that. The whistling and mimicking. There's other animals that do that stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's all stuff that you can prove through science that exists already in nature. So, contributing it to Bigfoot isn't that big of a stretch. Mm-hmm. They do the same things that other creatures of their, not species, but of the family of creatures that they belong to do the same kind of things. Demonstration charges. Bigfoot do demonstration charges. Great apes do demonstration charges. I've talked to people that said a Bigfoot chased them. And I said, no, a Bigfoot didn't chase you. If a Bigfoot chased you, he catch you.
Yeah.
Okay. A Bigfoot did a demonstration charge at you to get you to leave the area. That's what it was doing, Great apes do that. They very rarely touch the person that they're doing the demonstration charge. They'll run right up to them, but then they don't actually follow through with grabbing the person or doing anything to them. And I've never heard of a Bigfoot doing that.
Or pulling their arms out of their sockets, yeah.
Right, let the Wookiee win. He'll pull your arm out of your socket.
Right,
Thing,
exactly.
He is perfectly capable of doing it if he wanted to, but I don't really think that they really want to hurt us. Because I think that they're smart enough to know that if they really kill a human, that it's going to bring down a world of hurt on them. Because then they're going to have everybody there looking for them, and they're going to be armed. And they're going to shoot the first Bigfoot that they're going to see, and they're not going to ask for any kind of an explanation. Whether they could give us one or not, they won't ask. They'll shoot first and ask questions later when something like that happens. I think Bigfoot realize that. I think that's a lot of times why they leave domestic animals alone for the most part. You don't hear a lot of reports about them taking a cow you know.
Or a dog or a cat. Yeah.
Well, they'll take dogs and cats. I've gotten people talk to me about that. I had a lady tell me that her cat always went out while she was having her coffee in the morning, but would come back in before she left for work. And she let the cat out, had her coffee, cat didn't come back. So she went out in the backyard, which was bucked up against woods, and she was going, here, kitty, 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 here, kitty, 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 here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Cat didn't come. So she says, well, you dummy, if you want to stay out all day, stay out all day. I got to go to work. So she went to work, figuring she'd come home and find the cat sitting on her front porch waiting for her. She got home, no cat. So she went back out in the backyard again and was going, here, kitty, 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 here, kitty, kitty, kitty. And she said from way out in the woods, she heard, here, kitty, kitty, kitty. And she said, holy crap. And she never saw the cat again. And I told her, the cat was probably breakfast. And she says, yeah, I've come to that realization. But the Bigfoot actually mimicked her, with the here, kitty, kitty, kitty. So
I've never heard of them do that before. That's pretty unique.
Yep. She's the only one who's ever told me a story like that. But
I've heard other stories, but nothing like that, where they have like a rudimentary language that's sort of kind of sounds like English. But I met a guy from Wales, and we got to talking about, I guess they were talking in language and stuff. And he told me that he could say stuff to me in English that I would never understand. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So he started rattling off something in Welsh Cornish, or whatever their language is, and Welsh Gaelic. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like English. I have no idea what you said. Good one.
Well, there's a scene in one of the Austin Powers movies where he starts speaking in English to his dad, and they have subtitles on the bottom because they're, you can't understand what they're saying, but they're speaking English.
Understand the jargon, yeah.
Yep.
But I have heard that about Bigfoot, that they have some sort of rudimentary type of a language. I don't know what it sounds like. I've never heard it, but what conversations have you heard about people talking about that?
Well, I've heard the recordings.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've heard the recordings of them speaking, and every once in a while it sounds like you can catch a word, but the rest of it you can't. And from what I've been told, that linguistic specialists have listened to that and said that there are patterns in it, and that it is some kind of a language. But I've never personally heard it. In the Bigfoot investigations I've been on, I've heard howls, I've heard whoops, I've heard whistles. I heard that real aggressive growl only that one time. But I've never heard them actually trying to speak. To get back to another thing real quick, the only communication I've ever really had with them, where I felt that they were trying to communicate with me, was they gifted me one time. And I had been giving them gifts over a period of time, and I hadn't done it for a while because of the pandemic. I didn't want to take a chance of giving COVID to them. I didn't want to carry something to them as a gift and maybe have the COVID virus on it, because if they're closely related to us as I think they are, then I'm sure COVID would be transmitted to them also. So I quit doing it for a while. And right after we had that notoriety last summer, PBS came up and wanted to film from my headquarters where we're located. We have a headquarters out in the woods, and they wanted to come and film there. So I let them, with the stipulation that they couldn't reveal the location, and they agreed to it. So while they were there, they wanted to see how I gifted them. So that day I did bring them a gift, and I left it where I usually do. And a week later, my grandson and I went back there just to hang out and camp for the weekend. And we heard wood knocking. So we went out into the field to listen to the wood knocking, because it was coming from the woods further back from where the headquarters is. And when we returned to the camp, they had left me a gift. I sent a picture of it onto Jeffrey. It's they left me some corn and some potatoes. And it was kind of putting like a little pattern on the ground between the camp and where my grandson and I were hanging out listening to the wood knocking. So I think what they were doing the wood knocking for was to get me to leave the camp. And then they came while I was gone and left that for me, because it wasn't there when we left. When we got back, it was right there. So that's the closest I've came to any direct communication between me and the Squatches in my area.
Do you think they try to hide that fact from other observers, us included? I don't know if you have ever seen. I think it's the Mel Brooks History of the World Part 1. No, it's not. It's Monty Python, where the two Monty Python players are playing like complete idiot guards, goofing around. And as the noble walks by, as Caesar walks by, then when Caesar walks out of strange, out of earshot, they go back to intelligent conversation. So, do you think maybe they're hiding the fact that they have an elaborate communication system from other creatures?
I don't know if it's an intentional thing. I mean, they avoid us as it is.
Right, but I mean, it seems like when we encounter them, it's all like knock tree. But when we're away from us, it's like, oh, hey, how's your day today? I see that kind of duality with they're. I think they're smart enough to try to hide certain things that.
Oh yeah, well they probably want us to think of them as not equal to us, or maybe because they're keeping their secrets, they're keeping their stuff pretty close to the vest, I think they're way smarter than we give them credit for. Like I said, they're on a par with us, if not a little bit, maybe more intelligent than we are. It's only human arrogance, as Spock said, that makes us think that we're the only intelligent beings on the planet. He said that about during the whale voyage home movie. That every message is aimed at man. It could be aimed at something else. Or if you go to Hitchhiker's Guide, the most intelligent creature on the planet was white mice, and this whole thing was just a big lab experiment that they were running.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. So we know that they intentionally avoid us. That's got to be pretty smart, but they still leave traces behind: hair samples, poo samples. How come we haven't gotten a good? I mean, I know it's hard to find, but there have been people that have brought alleged hair samples to laboratories, and then the laboratory says, "Oh, it's a bear, it's a wolf, it's a." How are we missing it? The hair has got to be different on a Bigfoot than it is.
Well, there has been hair that's brought back
between a bear's hair, bear's fur, and a human fur, right?
Well, there's been hair that's brought back that has been identified as belonging to no known primate. There's quite a few examples of that have happened over the years. There's been blood samples. There's been other DNA samples gathered. That new thing that they're doing now, the environmental DNA, has multiple times come back with DNA not belonging to a known primate. I don't know if you guys watched that show Monster Quest that used to be on, but there's a place called Snow Grove Lake, which is probably, as a crow flies, probably about 400 miles from where I am. It's in Canada. It's north of Ottawa. Anyways, it's a lake up there that's no roads to it. You have to get in there by seaplane.
Oh, wow.
That's the only way to get in there. And there are cabins on that lake that people rent out in the summertime, for fishing. Parties go up there. And there's one camp in particular that they've done several different episodes about from Snow Grove Lake. And there are journals that the fishermen have left behind, speaking of encounters with Bigfoot. And one fall, the guy went back there to close the cabin up for the winter, and had found that something had broken into the camp and had trashed the place. So he went back up with, they don't call them forest rangers up in Canada. I think they call them environmental techs or something like that. They got some, whoops. Did I lose you there for a second?
No, you're there.
Okay. My phone went funny. But anyway, they had one of those guys go up there with them, and he looked at the damage, and he said, a bear didn't do this. I don't know what did this, but it wasn't a bear. And he goes, well, how do you know it wasn't a bear? He says, because the refrigerator is still intact. A bear would have pulled that refrigerator over and dug the insulation out of it, because the insulation they put in refrigerators to a bear smells like an anthill.
Oh.
And he goes, and bears always do that when they break into a camp. They always tear the refrigerator apart. He said, I don't know what did this. He said, it couldn't have been kids because there's no way to get up in here, but something did a number on your camp. He goes, if it was an animal, he goes, I suggest what you do is take a piece of plywood, put screws through it. He goes, and then when you leave, put the piece of plywood with the screw sticking up near the place where you think it's getting in. And then it'll walk over, it'll put its foot in there, it'll prick it on the screws, and it'll leave. It won't try to get in. And it won't really hurt the animal. It'll sting, but it won't, kill it or anything. So he did that, and he came back the next spring, and he found a bunch of hair and blood on the plywood that he had left over. So he goes, well, whatever it was stepped on this. So they sent the hair and the blood samples out for analysis, and it came back as a primate, but one that wasn't unregistered anywhere.
That's pretty cool. I've actually heard of people doing that with the boards and screws. Probably mean, but yeah, like you say, it doesn't kill them.
No, it's just a deterrent,
Yeah, don't come in here no more.
Right. And it's going to smart them for a few days, but it's not going to permanently damage them. But no, there's been a lot of examples where they've gotten DNA. They've gotten DNA from fecal samples. Mm-hmm. Because when something takes a poop, it leaves a little bit of its gut wall behind. Whatever animal it is, humans included. When you poop, a little bit of the cells off your intestines come out with it.
Yeah.
I'm not a poopologist or anything, but I'm just telling you a little bit I do know.
No, I totally agree. But how come no one recognizes it? I mean, I've heard of a few things that they come back unknown, but almost all the times you see them on the TV shows now, it's like, oh, it's a bear, and it's kind of depressing.
Well, it's just like the same reason why for years they denied UFOs for years, and now the government's coming out and saying, well, yeah, but the government's at least coming out now and saying, okay, well, yeah, something's going on. We don't know what it is, And they kind of did the same thing with Bigfoot. The FBI kind of came out and said, well, yeah, there probably is Bigfoot. We can't say for sure, but we're leaning towards saying, yeah, that there are Bigfoot. And they kind of released both of those things during the pandemic, so people didn't really pay much attention to it. But, they did come out and say both of those things. And there's several states in the country that have already declared Bigfoot as a living animal.
Which states?
I believe Texas. I might be wrong in this, and I think California. It did come before the Vermont legislature, but I don't think it passed. That they wanted to protect them. They wanted to pass a law that it was illegal to hunt them. I think there's several other states too that have done it. I can't name them off the top of my head.
That's pretty cool. How many do you think live in one group? I mean, how big is a tribe of Bigfoot? Because they have to keep themselves pretty small to avoid being detected when they move up and down following their food.
Well, I think they travel in small family groups. And then, according to that book I was telling you about earlier, they seem to gather every few years, he said. He said every few years it seems like there's more of them around. So he was under the impression that they might have like clan meetings where they, I don't know, discuss whatever they need to discuss, and then they probably choose mates during that time too, so that they're not interbred,
maybe like a rite of passage kind of thing for the males going from adolescence to adulthood, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they come there and then they pick a mate, or the mate picks them, however they work it out. I really think that's probably what they do. I think they travel a lot of the time. They find an area where the food is good. They'll stay there for a while, but I don't think they stay there a long, long time. Like, the area I'm in, I'm sure that the Bigfoot that I'm seeing are probably the same family, but I know they're not there 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. There's times they're not there, but there's other times that they're there for a while. And I think the family that lives in my area, I think now there's 4 of them. I found evidence last spring that they may have had a child.
So by small family group, you're saying maybe what? No more than 3, 4, 5 individuals?
Yeah. that's probably about the size of the family that they have. I don't think that they breed in big numbers. A
I would think
typical male
they
and
maybe
female
go out
might
there
have
in
2 or 3
packs like
kids.
20 though.
What's that?
I was thinking maybe they move more in packs like 20 or 25, like a small village.
Well,
You know,
I think that they don't stay together though. There might be. There's probably. I would guess in this area, if I had to guess, I would say there's probably 100. Okay, but they're not all together.
Mhm.
They're scattered. But they know. I think they know about where everybody is. Like Org's family lives up in Pleasant Valley, where Grug's family lives over towards where the Hardwoods is in Morristown or something like that. I think they have a general idea where the other groups are, the other
Yeah.
families are, if they need them. If there's some kind of an emergency where they need another Bigfoot, they probably could get a hold of them. I've heard wood knocking from distances. You'll hear a wood knock not too far from you, then you'll hear another wood knock answering it, which sounds quite a ways away. Might be like in Lord of the Rings, they light the fires, but with them it's the wood knocking.
Yeah, one fire after another.
What did you say their names were again? Grub and Orc.
I'm just made something up off the top of my head. I don't remember what I said now.
Grub and
Grug and Gorg. I don't know what I said now. I was just trying to think of something that sounded like a Bigfoot name. I don't know. I've never been formally introduced other than my one guy says that the girl he knew was named Luna.
Yeah. So what kind of things have you acted in?
I just finished shooting a comedy where I was one of the main characters. I was the bad guy actually in the movie. It's called Captain Corpse. It's a space comedy. It's about a space bounty hunter, and I play his potential father-in-law who doesn't like him. And so that we just got done shooting that last month. Well, actually, I wrapped. I think they got a few more scenes to do, but I'm all done with my part. I've done 2 other movies. I did one called Prisoners of Time. It was a Canadian production company did that. I didn't have a very big part in that. I was a village elder at a witch trial in that one. I didn't have a speaking part. I just had to sit there and look stern the whole time.
Shake a stick at her.
And the other one I did was called The Ballad of Billy Badass, and which is actually having a sequel done to it, which I'm going to be in. But I've done a lot of cosplay. I go to a lot of conventions, and I've written quite a few skits for different cosplay characters. In fact, I'm doing one as Penguin next week. I'm gonna play Penguin.
Cool.
And but those I don't get paid for. The movies so far I've been making a little bit of money on, but not a lot. I used to be a professional clown for years and years and years. I did kids' birthday parties, and I was on Romper Room and Sesame Street and a couple of other shows like that. So I did get a little bit of bigger jobs. But for about 99% of the time, I was doing birthday parties and things like that.
Wow, you were on Sesame Street. How was that? What puppets?
Well, they filmed it the same time they did the Romper Room thing. They did it at the Meadowlands. It was for a Christmas special. In that one, I played Santa Claus. And I got to appear with, remember Mr. Bob? He was the guy who used to sing. Oh, he was on Sesame Street. A lot of times he was singing or interacted with the Muppets on there. That was mostly what he did. He was on there for years. I think he's passed away. I think I heard he died a few years ago. And then I was on Romper Room. Well, like I said, they shot it all at the same time. I believe the teacher on the show at the time was Miss Judy. So this is going back a number of years. This was probably in the mid 80s when I was on those 2 shows.
Was Romper Room the one that ended where the lady had like the mirror with the mirror taken
Yeah.
out? She'd say,
yeah. She was, I don't know how they all were because they changed ladies over the years, but the one that I dealt with was not a very nice person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually
I would tell you a story, but this is a PG show, so
Yeah. Didn't you tell me something about a Star Trek fan fiction with a Bigfoot?
Oh yeah, I forgot I told you about that. Yeah, I wrote a fan fiction. Well, it wasn't a show. I called it the Foehammer Chronicles. Is what I called it. I named the ship after the sword that Gandalf had. The name of Gandalf's sword was called the Foehammer in Elven. And so I thought that was a cool name, so that's what I named my starship. And one of the stories I had in the Chronicles was that they discovered that Bigfoot was real, and that they were living here on Earth, but they weren't from Earth. They had come to Earth to hide from an evil force that was in the galaxy at the time that had been hunting them, and they had special abilities. Nothing supernatural, but they had special abilities that this evil force didn't want them to share with the rest of the galaxy. Just making the story shorter than it is. But anyways, I ended up having the one character end up being the security officer on my starship. The security officer that they had got killed in the story, and he had been on the ship helping them with the mission that they were on. And at the end of the story, the captain offered him a position on the ship, and he didn't know whether to take it or not. He goes, "Well, I have no Starfleet training." And the captain said to him, "Yes, but who's going to argue with a 9-foot tall security officer?"
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Bionic Man, $6 Million Man TV show? And I think there was a crossover from that with the Wonder Woman show where they have Bigfoot. Do you remember those?
Yeah, they did. It was Andre the Giant played him the first time they had him on there.
Yeah,
but then he became
did it the second time.
Yeah, he became ill and couldn't do it, so they had some. Yeah, the other guy did it the second time. They crossed it over with Bionic Woman.
Yeah. Oh, but well, I think they also had the same. It may not be a crossover, but I think they had the same storyline with the later Wonder Woman TV shows. But I remember it being filmed at the old LA Zoo, and he fights Bigfoot, and then he pulls Bigfoot's arm off and realizes, oh, he's bionic too.
Yeah, he was an alien.
He was an alien robot, but he's like, oh, you got fake arms just like me. Cool.
I spoke to some people that were on the set of A Princess Bride, and they said that Andre was such a gentleman, that everybody from the lowest person on the set to the star of the movie, he was just so nice to them and treated them with so much respect and love. They said that everybody on the whole set just loved that guy to death. He was just a great gentleman.
I've often found a lot of times the guy who plays the heavy, and even though Andre wasn't really playing the bad guy there, but he sort of starts off the way. But on the wrestling thing, he was kind of like usually the bad guy. That people always wanted to beat him because he's so big. But you find the guys who play the bad guy on the movies, Al Pacino, et cetera, those kind of guys, when you meet them in real life, they love their fans. They're absolutely the best people. On the other hand, the guys who you think were the nice people to walk up to, like maybe a Jim Carrey type person, the guy who makes you laugh, Will Ferrell, even, you go up and ask them for their autograph and they chew your head off. So I found that parallel throughout Hollywood.
Well, I've worked at a lot of conventions. I've met a lot of celebrities, and I've only had maybe 2 or 3 bad encounters with celebrities, and they're just not these B celebrities. I've had some, I've been around Leonard Nimoy. I've been around, I can never remember his name. He plays Aquaman in the DC series movies.
Jason Momoa.
Yep.
Yeah. I've met him. He's such a very, very big-hearted, nice man. The only person that I've really had a problem with, and I can't think of his name either, he's the one that played Dr. Saracen in the Generations movie, the one that ended up killing Captain Kirk. He was kind of a jerk to me. And,
he was in A Clockwork Orange.
Malcolm McDowell?
That's the guy.
That's the guy, yep. He's not a very nice man. Clint Howard is not a very nice person. That's Ron Howard's brother.
Yeah, I know who he is. I can't see that, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
That's
he was a real jerk to me and a couple of my friends one time. And Claudia Christensen, who I've always liked her acting, but I ran into her when she was going through her real bad alcoholic phase. I think she's quit drinking now, but I had a run-in with her when she was very drunk one day, and she was not very pleasant.
Yeah. Some people are mean drunk, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, she was not a nice drunk.
Well, guys, we got to start closing out here. We only got a few minutes. I had a bad run in online with Brett Butler, that lady that's in a show, and
Yeah.
she was on Walking Dead. Like what was that show? Grace Under Fire or
Grace Under
something.
Fire. Yeah.
Anyway, she had wrote me. I had seen some light beings, and I put a post up about it. And she's into that kind of stuff, but she wrote being nice about it. And then something happened with Hurricane Michael, and I had sent out a thing about donations because I had to move because of Hurricane Michael, and I don't go around begging for donations all the time. I do it once in a while, but she got mad because it came to her email and was just like mean, like just mean as hell. And then I said something rude to her about my fart box, but it's just a nightmare.
I got a
But
real quick William Shatner story if you want to hear it.
okay, okay.
Okay. William Shatner has a reputation of being, a jerk
Mm-hmm.
and not very nice to the fans and just in general. Well, anyways, I've got a friend that works for Creation Conventions, which is a major corporation that does conventions all over the place. And she was security for them. And she was assisting Mr. Shatner at a convention. And he doesn't like to be around people. So what they were doing is they had him sitting in a room by himself. And they were letting one person in at a time to get whatever they had autographed. And now I got to describe Tammy to you. We call her Tamazon. That's her nickname. She's about 6'3" or 4", and she's built like an Amazon. Okay. Wow. She could take probably most of us here, probably all three of us in the room at the one time. She could have a pretty good chance of kicking the snot out of us. But anyway, she was his assistant, they call it. So she was letting the people in, and she said she was only 5 feet from him. So she knows he heard the conversation she was having with this lady. The lady was all excited. She had all the collector's plates, and she'd had them all signed by the original cast. She had everybody's autograph except for Shatner's, and they'd all signed it with the same Sharpie. So she goes, and I'm just so excited. Once I get his autograph, I've got the whole set. Well, it was her turn. She walked over. She put the plate down in front of him. She handed him the Sharpie. He looked at the Sharpie for a second, threw it across the room, picked up a different color Sharpie, and signed the plate.
Ooh.
Well, she got very upset. She started crying. She picked up her plate and she left. Well, like I said, Tammy's a big girl. So Tammy turns around and says to the next person in line, "Would you excuse me for a moment? I have to have a word with Mr. Shatner." So she closed the door and she walked over to Shatner. Now, Shatner's not a very tall man. He's probably 5'6", 7". He's not a very tall man. And Tammy towers over him. So she goes over and she sticks her finger in his face and she goes, "Now look, I know you have a reputation of being an a-hole, but it doesn't mean you have to prove it every time you get the chance. If you ever do that in front of me again, I'm going to close the door like I just did right now, and I'm going to come over here and kick the crap out of you. Do you understand me, Mr. Shatner?" And he said he just looked at her with his eyes wide open and went, shook his head. So she said he was a perfect gentleman the rest of the weekend. About a month later, she was working another convention and they were handing out assignments, and they said, "Who wants Shatner?" And she says, "I'll take him." So they was set up the same way, and the line was forming, and she was standing at the door, and Shatner came in the other door, and he stopped in the middle of the room and looked at her and said, "You?" And she looked at him and smiled and said, "Me." And the same rules apply.
All right. Well, Dean, it's been great. Do you have anything, a website, or just people can come to your Facebook? Or
Yep,
Dean
they can come
Gleason?
to my Facebook. It's Seaway Valley Bigfoot Research. It's we don't always have a lot of serious stuff on there. We like to put fun stuff on there too. If a good report comes along, I put it on there, but I also put on a lot of really funny Bigfoot memes and stories that come to me. So you can go on there and have fun. Don't take it too seriously, because we want everybody to have fun and enjoy themselves there. If you have any reports you want to talk to me about, you're more than happy to give me a call. The number is 315-528-2615, and that'll get you right to me. If I can't talk to you right at that moment, because I do have a day job, I will get back to you. And I'm more than happy to go do investigations if it's within reasonable amount of distance where I can get to. If you have any questions about Bigfoot or something you've seen or heard, feel free to call me.
All right, we appreciate it. It's been a great show. Thanks so much, and a lot of good, unique stories I've never heard of experiences and stuff. I'm still getting over that Dannemora one. Wow, that's a trip. But all right, well, we appreciate it. Thanks so much, and keep us in the loop in the future. We'll have you on again. Thanks so much.
Okay, give me a call anytime, guys. Have a good day.
All right, take care. Take care. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. Take care.